and welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I'm your host, Demo, and I'm going to make a quick video about what I think is the worst Magic card ever printed. And this is not a Commander video. It really has nothing to do with Commander necessarily. I've heard a lot of people talk about what they think the worst card is, and I've heard lots of different arguments. So I thought I would throw my 2 cents in there. The worst card ever printed, I think, and of course I will explain why, is Jedit Ojanen. Jedit Ojanen is from the original Legends set, where I guess the thinking was just having a legend, right? This was the first set to have legendary creatures, and I think the thinking was just having a legendary creature was a good thing. So for that reason, you'd have to pay more. And so Jedit Ojanen is a 7 mana 5/5 with no abilities, just a whole lot of flavor text. He is a vanilla 5/5 for 7 mana, okay, which is horrible. Everyone will agree that's horrible. But the reason why I think it's the worst card ever made is because there's no reason to ever play it. And there's a bunch of these cards in the same set in Legends, these multicolored Legends that are vanilla and they have no ability and they're just bad. If you were to say, I think Savitri Skarzam is the worst, I probably wouldn't argue. There's a bunch of them that all sort of fit into the same boat based on casting costs, because Jedit Ojanen requires 3 colored symbols. He's only a 5/5. I think ultimately he's the worst. There's just no reason to ever play this card, right? If you look at a card, again, in the same set, Hunding Bjornsson, a 6 mana 5/4, but he has Rampage 1. So there's a reason to play him because he has Rampage 1. At least that's something. Jedit Ojanen has nothing. There's no reason to ever play him. So let's look at a card like Glnsa Nature, for example. I don't think anyone's ever thought of Glnsa Nature as one of the worst cards. However, I remember when Glnsa Nature came out in Kamigawa, it was a bulk rare. Nobody wanted it. It was garbage. Everyone thought it was terrible. And then, a little while later, someone figured out to put it in an elf ball deck, and it was fantastic. And eventually, it got to the point where it was so good it was banned. I think it's still banned in Modern for that reason. Okay, and that was a bulk rare. You could have bought those up like crazy back in the day. One with Nothing is another card that people, when it first came out, everyone thought it was trash, bulk rare. People still quote it as being one of the worst cards ever printed, because why would you ever want to play it? But that's exactly my point. There is a reason to play One with Nothing, because it actually does something. Discarding your hand, there's a use for that. There's an actual use for that. Maybe you're playing a Hellbent deck. If we can bring this into Commander, maybe you're playing a Hellbent deck and you want to discard your hand. Maybe you're playing a deck like my Egon deck that I just talked about. You could put One with Nothing in that deck, because putting everything in your graveyard from your hand is actually a good thing. When I think about the worst card ever, I don't think about cards that are just bad. I think about cards that are unplayable. Jedit Ojanen is a card that there's no reason for you to ever play. There's no reason for you to ever play a 7 mana vanilla 5/5. Even if you're in Commander, and yes, there are some Commander decks. If I go to EDH Rec, I think there's 5 Commander decks, Jedit Ojanen Commander decks. But guess what? None of them care about your Commander. I think there's a few that are sort of doing Cat Tribal. I guess you could make that argument. But for the most part, these Jedit Ojanen decks are just blue-white good stuff decks. And I am all for this strategy. And I'm not saying people shouldn't play this card. Go ahead. I'm all for the strategy of, I have a terrible Commander, so people don't take me seriously. That's a good strategy. It's a strategy I use. That's why I avoid popular commanders, because it makes you a target. If somebody sees Jedit Ojanen in the command zone, they're going to be like, no reason to concern myself with that guy, because that's awful. And that's a good strategy. If your deck is a blue-white good stuff deck, or if you have some really crazy strategy, maybe you want to just make Jedit Ojanen your commander just to get the attention off of yourself. And that's not a bad strategy. But you're basically playing him as your commander because he's so bad, right? And you just want to avert attention from yourself. Even if you're just playing a blue-white good stuff deck, almost any commander is better. If High Arcanus, for example, his suspend ability is worthless because you can't use it from the command zone. So he's 7 mana and he's only a 3/5. But he costs the same as Jedit Ojanen, but he's also a Mazavith. So that's better than because at least he's doing something, right? Jedit Ojanen is doing literally nothing. So that's why I think Jedit Ojanen is the worst card ever printed. He is just unplayable. There's no reason to ever play him in your deck. Even as your commander, you can just replace them with anything. So just a quick take on, for me, what I think the worst card ever printed is. That's it. Thanks for tuning in.